Hello guys, this is Vincent Schein, aka Johannes Einluft here. And today I wanted to talk to you about my first new series called Shiny Spotlight, and the first one is the Cypher System. Tim asked about it, and I think there are a lot of people who've heard about it. It's the game system where Numenera is based on. That's the first one which came out, and later the generic system itself was published in the name of Cypher System. The Cypher System is a very simple system in its core, and it's very easy to apply to a lot of different things. Though I think it's strongest in a setting which is similar to Numenera, so you need to have a reason to have some kind of collectible magic item-like item. And you also should have characters which are a bit larger than life. I don't think that Slice of Life or any non-supernatural protagonists don't really work that well with the system, but that's my personal opinion. The system itself has a few unique cornerstones, which I will explain now. The first one is the conflict resolution mechanic. It works with a D20 mechanic, which has a rollover mechanic, which depends on the difficulty. The difficulty ranges from 1 to 10, and the target number you have to roll over is 3 times the difficulty. So for difficulty 3, you have to roll over 9, for difficulty 6, you have to roll over 18, for example. So every difficulty above 6, you can't really roll, and that is where you have different methods of reducing the difficulty to a certain degree. The first one of this is reducing the difficulty through something called effort. Effort reduces the difficulty by 1 to 6 points and is the most effective one, but also the most costly one. You need to invest 3 points for the first level of effort and 2 more for each additional. So for example, 3 levels of effort costs 3 plus 2 plus 2. It's 7 points. You can reduce the number of effort you invest when you increase your edge. Edge is simply a mechanic which allows you to reduce the cost of abilities and effort by their number. So for example, if you want to invest 3 levels of effort but you have 3 edge, you don't pay your 7 points, but you pay 4 points. 7 minus 3. This is the first method. The second method is something called simply asset. Asset means nothing else but that you have some kind of advantage. You have the high ground, you have the best equipment, you have the moral high ground or whatever. As long as it gives you a tangible advantage, it's called asset. And you can have 1 or 2 levels reduced through assets. For the last one, it depends on if you are trained or specialized, which works simply like skills in other systems. The interesting thing about the Cypher system is there's no fixed skill list. You can basically say you are trained in basically everything. The important thing is that you make clear how broad or narrow your skills can be. So for example, if all interactions are 1 skill, or if you decide between diplomacy and interrogation and whatever. In the base game, it's normally, I think, that they try to find a balance between those two, because you don't really get that many different skills you are trained in. Generally speaking, the characters are quite capable without skills, but they just help a little bit. The last unofficial one, how you can reduce the difficulty is there are some skills which give unnamed bonuses, which allow you to reduce the difficulty even further. The second unique thing about the Cypher system is character creation. Character creation works through 3 different steps. The first one is the role. The role is basically like classes in different systems. There are, in the normal Cypher system, 4 different roles. You have the fighter, the speaker, the explorer, and the adept. The fighter is what you would expect, the fighting specialist. The talker is someone who has motivational abilities, supporting abilities, and social abilities. The explorer is focused on exploring, as the name might suggest, with exploration abilities, but also defensive abilities which allow him to survive long in the wilderness. And the adept is the typical I am the spellcaster in some way or another. It's a generic system, so you could also have a techie as an adept, whatever you want. These base classes give you the ability scores, the starting pool of points you're working with, the starting edge, the starting abilities, the starting equipment. They basically give you the starting package for your character. You can play a Cypher system with just the role alone, but the other 2 aspects give additional details and make your character more unique. The second thing is the so-called descriptor. The descriptor allows you to give some flavor to your character. It's an adjective in the words you use to describe your character. So, for example, fast or mad or noble. They are give you a certain package of abilities. So, for example, skills you are trained in, some additional attribute points. You can get unique abilities with them too. And some of them have upsides, some of them have downsides, some of them only have upsides, but they are not as strong. There's a huge variety on them, but they feel like the race, and for example, D&D works, so they are strongest and most definitive at the first levels, and later they get weaker, so to speak. They only give an advantage at the first level, but never get actually stronger. You don't get new abilities from the Descriptor on higher tiers. And the last one is the focus. The focus is the unique thing about your character. So, for example, maybe you are extremely skilled in a specific type of weapon. Maybe you have some kind of superpower. Maybe you are specifically good at one specific thing. Maybe you have attuned to a specific environment, and you can train monsters or whatever. This is your focus. This is the thing your character is known for. And it gives you one ability each tier, generally speaking, sometimes more, sometimes less. And it's the most interesting thing about your character, and there's usually the highest amount of different foci in the game. There are even more than the scripters usually. And usually you should try to not have more than one of the same foci in a group, because it's the unique thing about the character. If you combine these 3 aspects, you build a character. For example, a fast fighter which controls ice. I'm not sure if there's an actual focus, but yeah, that's basically the gist of it. You can describe a character in this short phrase almost completely. There are some things you can choose still, but that's the gist of it. The last thing that's interesting about the Cypher system is the equipment and Cypher system itself. Cypher is basically just a placeholder word for an ability which only works once. So, for example, a grenade would be a Cypher. A syringe with 1 dose of an antitoxin would be a Cypher. Everything that only works once is a Cypher. And the system is built around these ciphers. They can have quite strong abilities. They can even be plot breaking sometimes. That you maybe have a cipher which can control thoughts for a specific person, or you can find a specific thing you might be looking for. But the interesting thing is that cipher usually are rolled at random, and you can get specific ciphers even without the GM specifically placing them at a specific point. You can use them all the time, but each character can only carry a certain amount of them. Usually it's very low, from 2 to 6 maybe. And if you carry more, you have some kind of disadvantage. Maybe they can go off without you wanting, or you lose them, or whatever. So the game encourages you to constantly use ciphers to make things more interesting and to use your creative energy to see how you could use the specific tool in the specific situation. Or you could just switch it out later. Yeah, that's basically the gist and the basics of the system. There's also a specific type of cipher which is called the artifact, which is nothing more than a cipher that works longer or maybe even indefinitely. It's basically like the magic item in another system. Usually the artifacts have a depletion roll, so you don't have just 10 charges, but you roll you roll a specific die, so for example a d6, and every time you roll a 1, the item is depleted, so you're never sure how many uses you still have for a specific item. Specifically, if you roll a 1, it's the last use you have from the item. And the more you can use the ability, the higher the dice becomes. So an item which is really strong maybe has a d6, but an item which is has a relatively weak effect has a d20 or even a d100. So that's the basics of the Cypher system. I hope you enjoyed and see you guys next time.